So I did my PhD at Iliff in the University of Denver, and John and I overlapped by maybe a couple of years there. And I think I just missed Dottie. I started in 2007, so we just missed each other. But Sam and Nathan, we've talked over Zoom and over the phone, both of you recently. And of course, Dottie and Vanetta I've had in class before, and we know each other well. So I thought maybe the way we could structure this is I'll just start by asking both Dottie and Vanetta to say a few things about why they're in the program and their experiences of it so far. And then we can kind of open it up and see what questions or thoughts the rest of you have for either Dottie and Vanetta or myself, or for Daniel as a representative of the admissions office. And we thought about doing this now because the deadline for applying is coming up, and we'll be admitting a class in January. So any questions kind of aimed in that direction. So Vanetta, do you mind if I call on you first to kind of talk about your journey, your path, and why you find yourself in the DMin program at this moment?
Okay, let's see. I made notes, but I'm still not sure where to begin. So we're just going to dive in. Iliff was recommended to me very highly. Eric knows our regional minister. I'm Christian Church Disciples of Christ. Eric knows our regional minister. And she came to me and said, Iliff's got this program in prophetic leadership, and you need to be in it. So Eric took me to lunch and we talked about it, and I was excited and engaged. I finished my MDiv at Candler in 2003. And I've been thinking about an idea for how to do ministry, how to redirect ministry since like 2003, 2004. And when I looked at different schools, I felt like I didn't want to go to them. And basically because I didn't want to have to argue about what I was trying to do, I needed somebody to help me do it. A lot of the schools I looked at were very, very, what I call classical. Like you could get a D-Min in preaching or get a D-Min in Old Testament. Basically what I want to do is turn the church over and tip it on the side and send it in a different direction. So I didn't want to be in a situation where I had to argue the point that this needed to be done. I needed to be someplace where I could be encouraged and affirmed and even challenged to actually do that. The other thing that was in support of Iliff is that my advisor at Candler is Rev Dr Teresa Fry Brown. And so she was like, she got her D-Min, not her D-Min, sorry, her PhD and her MDiv at Iliff. And I have a great deal of respect and admiration for her. And the other piece why a D-Min at all is because I really believe that the focus of the church has to be redirected if the church is going to continue to do what it's supposed to do. It's time to change. We're in that, what they call that 500-year evolutionary cycle where change needs to happen. And we're resisting it and we're mad about it. What if we accepted it and redirected ourselves? Would church have more value and more meaning to people, or would it continue on this slide to irrelevance? And that's the shortest version of that I can tell. But those are just my two answers.
Thank you so much. It's fun to hear you talk about this over a couple of years now. We've been having these conversations, so it's cool to see how your thinking has not really changed that much, but how it's evolved, I'll say. Dottie, would you just say a few words about yourself and your presence in the D-Min program, and then we can open it up to other questions.
Sure. A lot like Vanetta, I am a chaplain. I'm a hospital chaplain, but I'm probably not a typical one. And I'm always, thank you, Van. And so I'm also looking for ways to turn chaplaincy a little bit on its head, and to expand the scope and the value and the understanding that we do far more than go into the room and pray. And that we as chaplains serve everybody wherever they are. And in the medical world, research is everything. You got to have research. You have to have research-backed evidence for what you do, and that includes chaplaincy. That includes spiritual care. And in some ways, there's a fair amount of research on chaplaincy, and in other ways, there's very little. And so right now I'm seeking to cross the gap between church clergy and hospital chaplains and understanding our authority as clergy to have end-of-life conversations with our parishioners and to understand that that's our sacred duty and our right, and to understand that we belong in the medical system, we clergy, and we belong in conversation with our congregants and the individuals we run across about spirituality and the existential questions that come when someone is faced with a life-limiting or terminal diagnosis. And so I think there's a great crossover there. And so I'll be doing some research, I hope, into help crossing that, and then providing tools, probably for clergy, to help everybody have those conversations in a deeper and more meaningful and a more comfortable way.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. We have someone has joined us since we started, and I'm sorry, I don't know your name, the person with the phone number. Do you mind introducing yourself and saying who you are? That's the 893-837. Okay, we can come back. So, oh, there you are. Did you want to?
Hello. Hello.
Hi.
Yes, how are you? Do you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, my name is Andrea Lowell. I'm from Phoenix. I'm a new student. I need to be a part of the DM ministry. Yeah, my ministry, I'm a pastor in charge of a Sudanese congregation here in Phoenix. And I was a nominate of Iliff some years ago, so it's my home. So what I need to add more in my ministry, I need to make a research about biblical aspect. Because our congregation is facing a lot of challenges whereby I need to be a part of giving a kind like a reconciliation, peace and reconciliation within the community who are facing a lot of challenges of the culture and the new environment for this our congregation. We are pure Sudanese, Southern Sudanese and Sudanese who are being displaced by war. And then now we are here in America. So we need to just give ourselves hope that biblical will make us to restore our hope in God and everybody to know what we are doing. And then we keep our relationship with God very strong through biblical. So that is what I'm going to do. And then I'm sorry I came in late, but it's okay. I just catch up because I have another thing that I was doing. So I'm sorry for that. God bless you all.
It's good to meet you on screen at least. We've had conversations before and emailed with each other.
Yes.
So it's good to see you here.
Yeah.
I'm going to open it up to Daniel muted me. To see what questions you all have for either me or for admissions or for our two current students, or any clarifications that you'd like about the program, any inside knowledge from our insider students.
Administrators, this first question, what is going to be the plan for January if we get in, since the pandemic is going on? And how is that going to filter out through the, 3 years program?
Yeah, that's a great question. Iliff has announced as of last week that we are all online through the rest of the academic year. So there will be no campus part of any class, at least through the beginning of June. So that means for the first year seminar, the Foundations of Prophetic Leadership seminar, which ordinarily would have asked you to travel to campus, and Vanetta and Dottie know all about that experience. That's actually one of the last things I did before everything shut down, was be a part of that class. It was pouring snow, I remember. So instead of that experience, we're gonna have, I think we've said 3 1.5 or maybe 2 hour sessions instead of 2 big 8-hour blocks. We're gonna do less time, but more focused on Zoom to replace that. That campus time will not have to be made up for the program, so it won't be replaced by later campus time. The second year seminar also requires campus time. So the one that Dottie and Vanetta are going to be registered for in January, of course, their second year seminar won't end up requiring campus time, but yours, assuming we're out of the pandemic by January 2022, let us pray, we will have you come to campus then. Beyond that, the only time that you really would have to be on campus besides that one time is if you signed up for a hybrid class, which required campus residential time. You don't have to sign up for any classes like that, but if you happen to want to take a class like that, then you would need to come to campus for those 2 4-hour sessions, which happen in the middle weeks of every quarter. So there's no requirement that you be on campus beyond those first 2 classes, but there's an option if there's a class that really appeals to you that has that as part of its program. Did I get that right, Daniel?
Yes. Yeah. So it's like Eric said, so we're on the quarter system, right? So 10 weeks. So the hybrid on-campus part happens pretty much right in the middle, right? Week 5. And it's 8 hours of campus time. Traditionally, we've had it it's broken out between 2 days, right? I always forget if it's like an afternoon and then a morning, right? So it might be like a Monday afternoon, Tuesday morning, and then you go back to California or wherever. But yeah, pretty brief. And once we get to that point, there's a vaccine and all of that, you can stay wherever you like. The admissions does have a contract kind of with a local hotel that's just like a couple minutes from campus in public transportation, and students get a discount if you're here for Iliff there. So we try to be hospitable that way. I don't know how many of you have all been to Denver before or not, but it's very convenient. If the hotel's still there, right? I don't know what's happening to the economy during the pandemic either, but that's what we've traditionally done.
The other sort of slight difference, Sam, is that in the first year we had orientation for new students, new DMin students on the Sunday before the 2 days of campus time. And that is moving to Canvas, which is our learning management system. So that'll be an online orientation rather than sit in a room with each other orientation. All right, what other comments or questions do we have?
I'm curious if Dottie or Vanetta or both would talk about how faculty have been in terms of helping you shape your project, and or if you've made any adjustments to your project or even explored a completely new area, how that interaction has been.
I'll go first this time, Vanetta. Well, I was, so just as far as how my project has changed and evolved, it is and continues to, because I didn't have a super solid idea of how to articulate it when I started. So my project continues to evolve. I am getting, I feel, a really great amount of support from each of the professors that I've had and from Eric. So they're very accessible, email, phone, Canvas. We get prompt responses, or at least I have, to weekly assignments from our professors, and good feedback, pretty solid direction, and prodding when the direction needs to, when I'm not going the right direction. But it's very, very kindly and well done. Also understand that we started in January, and then when the pandemic hit, so Q2, everything changed for everybody. And so because the world is so very different from when we started, I am super, super impressed with the flexibility and the ability to adapt by the staff and by Iliff, and their kindness towards us as we all had our lives turned upside down and were trying to take classes. So I have found it to be incredibly supportive. They didn't pay me to say that.
Yeah, thanks.
Wait a minute, I heard the check was in the mail.
We don't have the budget for that.
Okay. I agree with everything that Dottie said. My project has evolved. It's been an idea that's been stewing in my head for a number of years. So I get to talk about it out loud, and nobody goes, "Are you kidding? Are you crazy?" It's always listening, and it's an active listening. You get suggestions, but it's ways to find support and ways to find information. It's not rethink this, start over. It's more of, okay, if you care about this part, here's an author that may be able to help you, or here is a professor who can support this or has this interest. When I talked to Eric about how to build my project team, and I went through the list to see what different people studied and what they cared about. And I said, okay, I think these are who I want. And he goes, yeah. This person, this professor has this interest that matches your interest. You may want to talk to them. That kind of support and that kind of thinking questions that that I appreciate. Another thing is we who do this work in the DMin program are busy people. Nobody decides to do a DMin because they got nothing else to do. I am an active pastor in a multicultural, multi-ethnic church. I serve as the regional moderator for the Christian Church Disciples of Christ in Central Rocky Mountain region, and I'm getting a DMin. And in my personal life, which is on the East Coast, I have 2 children and 2 grandchildren. So there are demands. When the world broke with COVID, I didn't have to explain that. Eric and the team got it. You know, so I appreciate that. The other thing, there's 2 other things. One is technology. The technology to me makes sense for what they ask us to do. He talked about Canvas, and it's like, I can never explain Canvas in the time of this call, but it's something you want to get to, learn it, ask your questions. It's a good framework for what it is we're trying to do. The other piece is a little more kind of how my brain works. I like the fact that, like, the class we're taking now is in research methods. And the research methods class is a result of the team, the Iliff team, looking at the doctoral process and deciding there was a gap. And then they built a class to fill in that gap and had the courage to offer the class while they had to tweak and adjust the class when the world broke. Those people can support me doing something that turns the church upside down because they think like that anyway.
Great. Thank you.
That's all I got.
And I'll say, you know, there's all the Iliff faculty are brilliant at one thing or another, but the people who are most involved in the DMin tend not to be people like me. Actually, I'm a New Testament scholar, but rather most of the faculty involved in the DMin are drawn from our practical disciplines just by nature of the degree. So for example, the professor in the class Vanetta and Dottie are in right now is Dr. Christina Lazardi-Hajbi, who came to Iliff a couple of years ago from the National Office of the United Church of Christ, where she was the sort of in-house dedicated researcher for congregational vitality. She was the one, you know, if you want to, you know, revitalize a church or start a church or think about whether a church needs to be closed or rethought, she was the one that the whole denomination looked to. And so having, I think, a class in research methods taught by someone like that, who not only knows it from the I got a PhD in it side of things, but also I've helped dozens of congregations using this very model side of things, I think is really kind of brilliant. So, you know, in terms of, I don't think all faculty everywhere would fit that description I think Dottie was giving of super responsive and responds to emails immediately and that kind of thing. But the people involved in the DMin really kind of do, I think, almost by definition. They're the ones who are very good at that sort of thing. I'll stop there and see if anyone else has something to ask as a follow-up or to add or a different question.
So I'm actually wondering, I remember when kind of the exploration was going on, right? With what would a new DMin at Iliff look like? And I remember during the sort of in-house research part on that, I mean, this has changed a bit even over the last 2 years, but there is sort of still a perception or expectation maybe amongst a lot of folks, right? Like DMin is like, that's really for a pastor in a local congregation, right? And can you say anything more about just the breadth of the degree, right? Like what conceivably all can fall under prophetic leadership, right? I can't remember if we have anybody right now that's like looking at social change kind of research project, but that's obviously a strength of Iliff faculty too. So,
yeah, there's a couple things going on there. I think one is that the old DMin, the one that existed up until about 2012, I think, or somewhere in that range, was a preaching DMin. So it was a very traditional, very successful program that produced some really fine graduates, I think. But there was just, I think, declining interest in that sort of program because there's only so many people who want to, focus on preaching. So when the degree was reimagined, we put it in terms of prophetic leadership with the idea that there are people leading prophetically in all sorts of different contexts. And the whole program, I hope, if we've done our job correctly, is set up to take whatever context you bring to the program and think in those terms. So we have, even in the first cohort, we have a couple people like Dottie who are chaplains. We have people who are involved in somewhat traditional congregational ministry, although different, forms of that. We don't really have anyone in the first cohort who's doing more kind of social work, social justice kind of stuff. I don't think. I'm running through the list in my head, but we've had a lot of interest from people, and I think the second cohort certainly will have folks like that. I think all the people on this call are all well, not all. Most of you are in some form of congregational ministry or thinking in terms of, at least in terms of denominations and traditions. But that's not a limitation of this program. If you want to come and think about how to be a prophetic leader in, I'm thinking about the southern border. There's so much going on with immigration and, frankly, white supremacy being sort of woven into the fabric of our national government. I think there's work that could be done there, right? And it doesn't have to do anything. It doesn't have to have anything to do with Christianity or a congregation or anything like that. I think those are the kinds of students we're interested in attracting, is anyone who is thinking about being a leader in a context like that. The thing that has really freed us actually in the last 6 or 8 months here, part of the reason that the first cohort didn't really have many people like this, we like most schools that are doing theological education, we are accredited by the Association of Theological Schools. That body just revised its accreditation standards in June. And in fact, one of the members of the committee was Christina Lizardi-Hajbi, who I just was talking about. So a year ago, if you came to Iliff and said, I'd like to do the DMin, we would say, cool, do you have a Master's of Divinity, for starters? And do you have 3 years of ministry? And ministry is pretty narrowly defined. And if you did have those things, then we could consider you. Now, there's a little bit different standard that allows us to consider a broader array of applicants. So I think the program only is going to explode in terms of like the kinds of students we can talk to and recruit, because we have a lot more freedom now. So I think all of you would have been perfectly admittable under the old program, under the old accreditation standards. But I think the new standards give us a lot more latitude. And that's good news. I think it can help the program at Iliff be what we had envisioned it to be, which is sort of an umbrella under which you can bring your own context, bring your own work, and find resources to keep doing that work.
Another question.
Sam, yeah.
Yeah. You put out your feelers to see if Iliff is the place you want to go. And one of the all the positives of being progressive and liberal, how does, as a student, in your experiences, students How does Iliff deal with race and heteronormative paradigms?
I'm new, but one of the things that I appreciated was that there was an opportunity to speak to each other first as students of color. There's a group of students of color that includes the faculty, and we gather and we talk about our experience. And if there's a question or a problem, there's somebody there who's empowered to at least take that question and move it up the chain to try to get some results, some things done. I live in a very varied multicultural world, so I've seen it handled in lots of different ways. I appreciate that there's an intentional space that's not just students, but it's students and faculty and administration who participate together. So we see Dean Lee in that meeting, we see Dr. Christina in that meeting, and we see the MDiv students, and we see the DMin students. So we all get to talk. The other thing that I kind of watch out for is how things are done. You can tell me all you want to, but I'm looking to see when you have programs, when you have activities, is there a mix? You know, is there not just a genuine mix? You know, don't give me the token song, but is there an authentic blending of cultures and perspectives? You know, I am encouraged and impressed. I can't give them the like 100% perfect yet because I haven't been here that long, but what I do see encourages me, and I make time to participate in those things because I feel like it's genuine. And I don't mean to sound like a prima donna. I don't have time to play. So if all they're gonna do is I'm out. But I make the time to be present because I feel like it's genuine. Does that help?
Would someone address the heteronormative privilege?
Is Flame still active on campus, Eric? There was at one time an LGBT-focused student group called Flame that did programming and conversations on campus. And there have been queer identified faculty who have come in and out on guest programs. And I was the previous chair of Flame on campus for 2 of the years that I was doing my MDiv there, and brought Bob Goss to come speak, who wrote Jesus Acted Up, and brought Chris Glacier, who wrote The Word Is Out. And so there were other LGBT identified people who came in and did. So there have always been pastoral care classes to the LGBT community and how to have conversations around that. So I found it a very inclusive community. I will tell you that I was there and cried with a lot of my Methodist friends, because you do need to remember that they have a Methodist connection, and the Methodist Church is in a constant struggle about that piece of their identity. And, you know, I have sat with friends that Dottie and I share, and know that they continue. And it has always been a place to both celebrate that diversity and mourn the decisions that affect that community as well. So, you know, we have laughed and grieved at Iliff many times for many things. I remember sitting around the fireplace. I hope there's still a fireplace in that great room with people crying. No fireplace? Oh, life has changed for the worse. Anyway, that's the least of my worries in the middle of a pandemic, but there was always great space to have conversations around that. And, you know, many of the papers that I wrote at Iliff were from a very queer perspective. I had a class in addictions with Carrie Doring, and my paper was specifically around gay men and sexual addiction. So there have always been huge amounts of support and leaning into that piece of difference.
Yeah, that's great, John. I just wanted to add to that a little bit. Yeah, the student group, it's not called Flame now, it's the Iliff Queer this part of your question a little bit on the phone. I'm not totally sure, but I mean, I would actually, as an admissions rep, right, and knowing a lot of the other ATS schools, I actually think Iliff is a leader in this area, because I think at our last count, it's like 33 to 35% of our entire student body, right, whether they're in Denver or all over the US, identify as part of the LGBTQIA plus community. That's like a lot, right? Like especially for a seminary maybe, but not even just for a seminary. And all that was kind of like on purpose, right? It was about going to certain events and having a plan to increase that part of our diversity. So I actually think Iliff as an institution has done really, really well with that. We've done great with our faculty. It's about, what is it, a third, Eric, maybe women and scholars of color.
It's over half if you add those two categories.
Okay. But I do think we still have a way to go in terms of ethnic, racial diversity of our student body, but that is an institution-wide commitment as well. And so, yeah, I really appreciate kind of what Vanetta's sort of honest response to what her experience has been. That kind of has been what I have seen too. Thank you for that question, Sam. It's really important.
I hesitate to chime in because you asked the question of students, and also because I'm a straight white man. I'll just say my experience in the class that in the fall quarter, which ended yesterday, I taught a class called Queering Early Christianity, and there were 29 people in it, and I was the only straight white man. And it was fantastic, just the best thing I've ever done. So part of that was because of the community of people. There were no D-Min students in it, but just a fantastic community. And I think John would recognize from what I hear him saying, some of the dynamics that were going on in that class, some of the grief for the actions of institutions and denominations, and just a real spirit of defiance and reclamation of these traditions that have been harmful for so long.
I guess I'll speak up too. I am a straight white woman, of great privilege, and that's how I pretty much every answer at Iliff. But I actually really love that because it holds us all accountable to who we are. And I can be at Iliff because of the inclusivity, and because, as John said, the tears that we can share together. And that's also a safe place for me to say, I think every person is a beloved child of God. And why can't we treat them that way? And what do I need to do better to do that? And what do I need to be aware of in my own history and biases and embedded stuff to be better? So I think it's pretty amazing, actually.
What other questions or comments do we have?
I'm curious, because I initially was anticipating that this would be a fall decision. So is this January start affect how this will play out? And has there been a revised timeline? And what does it do about those of us who were looking at doing possible financial aid and had put in, FSAs and had, addressed that as part of our plan?
Good question. So the normative practice for this degree is a winter admission, winter start date. That's when the big cohort starts. We experimented this past fall with fall admissions. Andrea is one of those who was admitted in the fall, down on the bottom of my screen, along with one other person. And I think we have decided not to do that anymore for the time being, just because it messes with our cohort building. So the way it works then is we admit students in early December. If you apply, you'll have a decision, I think, by the second week of December. And then you would start your coursework in January with the Foundations of Prophetic Leadership class, which is sort of the kickoff class that I co-teach with my colleague, Dr. Jennifer Leith. From there, it's 2 years of courses that are there's a schedule. I don't know if they've updated the Iliff website yet. There was an old schedule, and that's been tweaked in the last couple of weeks, actually, because of some faculty going on sabbatical and that kind of thing. But at the end of 2 years, then you will have done the full cycle of your coursework, and you'll be taking what's called the proposal seminar, which is where you write the proposal for the doctoral project that you want to do and choose your advisor, and you're off to the races then at that point. So in terms of financial aid, there's a new financial aid person since you were last around. Her name is Goldie Ector, and she's marvelous and wonderful in every single way. And she will be much more qualified than I am to walk you through this. But my understanding is it doesn't do anything to your financial aid that wouldn't have been the case in the fall. So all the same processes, and Daniel knows better than me, all the same processes would apply. I forget the rest of your question, but the schedule, the normative thing that we're imagining is a schedule beginning in winter. So if you're interested in being part of the program right away, then we're doing applications now for a month from now, or a month and 2 weeks from now to begin classes. You could also look to a year from now, essentially, but we probably won't be doing any September starts.
Yeah.
Does that answer what you're getting at?
And you would
let
FAFSA
Daniel
just kind of like, you would fill out a FAFSA just like any other master's, student at Iliff that's trying to start in the winter as well. But yeah, Goldie is complete awesome sauce and can help that. But yeah, it really shouldn't be any different process. I think normally in non-COVID world, our winter deadlines had been like around the middle of November, right? November 15th, but we've pushed it all back to December 1st. For the DMin application. And I actually think the DMin application online, it's actually probably a little bit less, like there's not quite as much, I don't think, that you have to do to kind of get in the queue to be considered, because it's 2 references, right? Instead of our typical 3.
That's right, yeah. I think one that speaks to your professional life and one that speaks to your academic ability.
And the reason I asked is I had filled out a FAFSA when I put in all the paperwork back in, God knows what month that was now, and just hadn't heard anything. So it's, but the whme world is on these huge pregnant pauses, which, kind of make you crazy no matter which pool you're looking at.
Yeah, no, that's good, John. Yeah, and I, as far as my recollection is, I think like we've got all your stuff, right? Like saved up and ready to go. And so Eric mentioned it, but yeah, the DMin admissions committee, I think they're going to be starting to meet like right away, like a December 2nd, right? The day after the cut.
December 4th in the afternoon, actually.
Okay.
When we're meeting.
Yeah, and so yeah, if there's any sort of FAFSA timeline issues, Goldie will absolutely help us all figure that out. If something needs to be resubmitted in terms of the FAFSA, that can be easily accomplished. Yeah, good question.
John, they remodeled that whole front lobby room. So the mail room is gone and the fireplace is gone. And that big front classroom is gone, but it's been turned into a lounge. So whenever the day comes that we can go back in the building, you'll find it transformed, but I think it's better in some ways, just no fireplace.
I worked at that front desk many an hour, letting people in and out of that stupid parking lot and locking up that building, even during the bat days. So, and that was BAT, not BAD, the bat days when the old Iliff Hall had bats. So.
Yes, I remember those days. Any other questions or things you want to talk through while we're here? We've got a couple of current students who can give you all the information that's in their experience. And I'm so grateful, by the way, for the 2 of you for being here. Thanks for your time. Any further things you want to talk through while we're all here together? If not,
can I add one
yes,
thing?
Go for it.
Balance matters. Balance in school and work and whatever else is going on in your world matters. There are a lot of resources here to help you with that. And all you have to do really is put your hand up and somebody jumps and helps to get you done. So you don't have to be scared of it, but pay attention to it. Balance matters. And they already know that. So there's, like I said, there's a network of stuff that's available. We get emails almost maybe twice a week telling us how to access EAP and other things that can help. So know that, you know, while the world is crazy, there's a net here to help you.
Can you say more about EAP and what that is in case folks don't know?
Oh, we used to call it Employee Assistance Program, but basically it's a group of counseling services, referral services, everything from legal, finance, mental health, social, rent, COVID, whatever it is you need help with to help stabilize your world. They've got somebody who either is offering it or can point you to it. And it's, you know, I don't want to overstate, but I think it's free. I haven't seen a price on anything. So
Free to you.
free to us. Okay. Right.
It used to be offered to Iliff employees, and because of the pandemic, they've extended it to students as well. So it's not unlimited free. So we've used it, for example, some of my kids have had anxiety around, you know, getting a flu shot's the most recent thing. And you can call and say, hey, my kid has anxiety about this thing. And I think you get up to 5 sessions of counseling for free. And after that, you would have to start paying. So it's not, you know, an unlimited resource, but it's super helpful. I used them when I was in a conflict with my landlord. You know, so it is a nice kind of safety net. That's a relatively new addition to the suite of student services. Well, Daniel, I don't know how this meets with your agenda for this meeting, but I'm not hearing a lot of other questions. Sam, I know you know how to get in touch with me. Andrea, I know that you do as well. And John, now you know, you can send me an email if you want to talk, or we can have a Zoom or whatever you want if you have questions. Sounds like you've already got your stuff in. But I'm here if you want to chat. I'm sure Daniel would say the same. And I just want to thank you for your presence here today.